Chio stood at the bottom of the staircase, her dress neatly pressed, her heart racing with excitement. Tonight was supposed to be the night she finally joined her family at the long mahogany table, surrounded by laughter and toasts. But just as she took a step forward, her mother's cold eyes met hers. "You're not ready, Chio. Stay in your room." The words cut sharper than a blade. From the doorway, she watched her parents and siblings disappear into the dining hall without her, leaving her in silence. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. Instead, she whispered to herself, "If I'm not ready now, one day they'll choke on how ready I become." Chio sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the door that separated her from the laughter and chatter downstairs. Every time she heard the clinking of glasses, or the sound of her family toasting, a sharp pang ran through her chest. She didn't understand why she was always left out, why her parents never thought she was ready to be part of these simple family moments. She remembered every time she asked to join in, only to be told she needed to wait, that she wasn't ready yet. Tonight felt worse than usual because she had dressed nicely, hoping this would finally be the night they would let her sit at the table. But the door stayed closed, and the sounds of celebration carried on without her. Chio's eyes wandered to the photo frames on her dresser, pictures of her with her siblings, all smiling, all included in family events while she remained invisible. A mix of sadness and determination settled over her. Instead of crying or complaining, she took a deep breath and sat quietly, letting the silence sink in. In that moment, she realized that the door wasn't just keeping her out, it was giving her time to think, to plan, to prepare. While her family celebrated without her, she began imagining a future where she would no longer wait for permission to belong, where she could create her own space, her own achievements, and maybe one day, they would see her in a whole new light. The locked door was heavy, but inside her, something started to stir. A quiet fire that would not be extinguished. Chio pushed herself off the bed and walked to her desk, her fingers brushing over the stack of old notebooks she had kept hidden for years. She pulled out one in particular, its cover worn and corners bent, a notebook she had filled with dreams, plans, and ideas that her parents always dismissed as silly or impossible. She opened it carefully, almost reverently, and began flipping through the pages. Each page held sketches of small businesses she wanted to start, notes about how she could sell products online, lists of goals she had quietly set for herself. There were ideas for workshops, designs, and even ways to make money from her skills in ways nobody in her family had ever thought about. For years, she had tucked this notebook away, not wanting anyone to see, because every time she shared a plan, her parents would laugh or tell her she wasn't ready. But now, sitting alone in her room, the notebook felt like a treasure chest of possibilities. Chio traced her finger over the words she had written long ago, remembering the excitement she felt at each idea, the way her mind had raced with possibilities while the world outside told her she couldn't. She realized that the notebook wasn't just paper and ink, it was proof of her persistence, of her willingness to dream even when no one believed in her. For the first time that evening, a small smile appeared on her face. The clinking of glasses downstairs didn't sting as much anymore because she had something powerful in her hands. Her own vision, her own roadmap, something her parents couldn't ignore forever. She whispered to herself, "If they won't let me sit with them now, I'll sit with the world later." With that, Chio began marking her favorite ideas, planning how she could start small, step by step, and turn these dreams into reality. The hidden notebook, once dismissed and forgotten, had suddenly become her secret weapon, a quiet rebellion against the limits her family had placed on her. And in that moment, alone in her room, Chio felt a surge of hope, determination, and a fire she hadn't realized she carried. Chio sat on her bed, notebook open, but a wave of doubt crept in. She loved her family and wanted their approval, yet every dinner and celebration reminded her how little they believed in her. Just then her phone buzzed. It was a message from Goma, her closest friend since childhood. "Don't waste your time trying to prove yourself to people who can't see your worth," it read. Chio paused, letting the words sink in. Goma had always been the voice of reason, the one who reminded her of her strength when she forgot it. She read the message again. "Start your own path, quietly. Build it step by step. Let your life speak louder than their words." For the first time, Chio didn't feel anger or sadness. She felt clarity. She realized she had spent too many years hoping her parents would notice her, waiting for a moment that might never come. It wasn't about revenge or proving them wrong. It was about claiming her own future, on her terms. She put her phone down and closed her eyes, imagining a life where she didn't wait for permission, where her achievements were hers alone. She saw herself growing, learning, and succeeding quietly, letting her hard work and results speak for her. The clinking of glasses downstairs didn't bother her anymore. It became background noise to the life she was about to build. Goma's words echoed in her mind again, steady and firm. Quietly, Chio. Build, don't beg. A smile crept onto her face, small but full of determination. She picked up her pen and began to write in her notebook, not just ideas for projects, but plans for action, timelines, and steps to make those ideas real. Every word she wrote felt like a promise to herself, a promise that she would no longer wait for validation from people who couldn't see her potential. That evening, sitting alone in her room, Chio made a silent vow. She would grow, she would succeed, and she would do it quietly, with dignity and focus. Her parents' doubts no longer mattered. With Goma's encouragement in her heart, Chio felt a quiet power building inside her, a power that was stronger than words, stronger than judgment, and unstoppable. She was ready to step into her own life, one determined, silent step at a time. Chio didn't tell anyone, not her parents, not her siblings, not even her closest friends, what she was about to do. Every night, after the house grew quiet and the lights downstairs went off, she opened her laptop and dove into a world that felt entirely her own. She watched videos about business, read articles on how people started small and built empires, and practiced skills she had only dreamed of before. At first, it felt strange, working in silence while her family thought she was idle in her room. But slowly, the late hours became her favorite part of the day. Her pain, the rejection, and the constant feeling of being overlooked became fuel, pushing her to learn faster, work harder, and plan smarter. She started small, offering digital services online, selling handmade crafts, and even testing ideas for small businesses that could grow over time. Every sale, every positive message from a client, made her chest swell with pride in a way no family compliment ever had. She saved every penny, reinvesting it back into her projects. And slowly, the seed of her secret hustle began to grow. Chio's room, once just a place of waiting and longing, became a workshop, a headquarters, a safe space where dreams turned into action. Even when exhaustion weighed on her and doubt crept in, she reminded herself that this was her chance to create a life that no one could take away. The thought of her parents telling her she wasn't ready no longer hurt. It fueled her even more. She imagined a future where she could walk into any room and her accomplishments would speak before her. Her nights were long, and sometimes lonely, but they were hers, and every moment built towards something bigger. She kept a small smile to herself, knowing that one day, the world would see her work, and they would understand that she had never needed permission to succeed. Chio's secret hustle became her silent rebellion and her hidden victory, a story of determination and resilience written in quiet hours and tireless effort. Each night, as she closed her laptop and turned off the light, she felt closer to the person she was meant to become. A person unstoppable, unshaken, and finally ready. Months passed, and Chio's quiet nights of work began to show results. What started as a small online idea, something she had hesitated to share even with her closest friends, slowly grew into a business that was gaining attention. Each day, she checked her messages with a mix of excitement and disbelief. Orders were coming in, clients were leaving glowing reviews, and strangers were praising her creativity and dedication. The products she had painstakingly designed and marketed were now flying off virtual shelves, and her little side hustle was no longer so little. She kept it all secret, careful not to let her parents or siblings find out, because she wanted this success to be hers alone, untouched by their opinions or judgments. Chio would sometimes sit in her room, staring at the numbers on her screen, her heart racing with pride. She remembered the nights she had stayed up until dawn, teaching herself new skills, crafting every detail, learning about marketing and customer service, and every sacrifice now felt worth it. The feeling of holding her own success, independent of the family that doubted her, was intoxicating. She realized she had created something bigger than she had ever imagined, a business that could grow and sustain her dreams without anyone else's approval. Even when her parents boasted about her siblings' achievements at family gatherings, Chio smiled quietly to herself, knowing the truth. She had already surpassed them in ways they couldn't see. She no longer felt invisible. Her late nights of learning and working in silence had transformed into real results. And every small victory fueled her determination even more. The breakthrough wasn't just financial, it was emotional. Chio finally understood that her worth didn't need validation from the people who had kept her out of the family circle. She had built her own empire quietly, one step at a time, proving to herself that patience, dedication, and belief in her own vision could create something extraordinary. For the first time in years, she felt unstoppable. Her heart swelled with confidence, and a small smile played on her lips as she whispered to herself, "They didn't see me before, but soon they will. And they'll have no choice but to notice." This first breakthrough was more than business success. It was the moment Chio realized she was capable of creating her own life, one she controlled entirely, far beyond anyone's expectations or limitations. Chio watched quietly from her room one evening as her parents hosted another family gathering. The dining hall was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the familiar sound of her father proudly announcing her siblings' latest accomplishments. "Your brother just got promoted to manager," he said, beaming. "And your sister is now leading her team at the new branch." Everyone around the table nodded, impressed, complimenting her siblings and praising their successes. Chio's stomach tightened, but she didn't feel jealousy. Instead, she felt a quiet satisfaction that no one could see yet. While her family celebrated what they thought were big achievements, they remained completely blind to the empire she had been quietly building in her room. Every night spent working, studying, and growing her online business had brought her far beyond anything her siblings had accomplished so far. Her sales were increasing every week, clients were leaving glowing testimonials, and her reputation online was spreading like wildfire. But none of her family knew. They continued to boast, brag, and compare, never realizing that the girl they dismissed as not ready had already surpassed them in skill, independence, and success. Chio listened as her mother commented on how responsible her brother was, how talented her sister seemed, and she suppressed a small, victorious smile. Her parents were blind to the truth because they had always focused on what they could see, the immediate, conventional milestones. They couldn't measure the sleepless nights, the lessons learned, or the determination that had built Chio's business from scratch. She realized something important in that moment. She didn't need their approval or acknowledgement. Her work, her results, and her growing independence were proof enough that she was more than ready. While her family celebrated surface-level achievements, Chio's accomplishments were deeper, stronger, and far more meaningful. She felt a sense of power, not arrogance, knowing that she held a secret victory they could never take away. Their blindness wasn't her weakness, it was her advantage. She had time, space, and freedom to grow, unnoticed and underestimated, which meant when the time came, her success would hit harder than any praise or recognition her parents had ever given to her siblings. Sitting there quietly, watching her family's celebration of what they thought mattered most, Chio made a silent promise to herself. One day, they would see everything she had achieved, and by then, it wouldn't just be impressive, it would be undeniable. She leaned back in her chair, letting the moment settle, feeling a calm but powerful confidence that her time to shine was coming, and it would be unstoppable. Chio could hardly believe the email when it arrived. Her small online business, the one she had built, quietly over months of late nights and endless work, had caught the attention of a national business magazine. They were featuring her story as one of the most inspiring young entrepreneurs of the year. Even more surprising was the invitation attached. She was to attend a prestigious award gala where leaders, influencers, and industry experts would celebrate innovation and success. Her heart raced as she imagined walking into a room filled with people who had no idea she had once been told she wasn't ready. She prepared carefully, choosing an elegant dress and practicing her confident smile in front of the mirror. On the night of the gala, Chio stepped out of the car and was instantly surrounded by flashing cameras. Photographers called her name, reporters asked for interviews, and her social media notifications exploded with messages congratulating her. Everywhere she turned, her name was trending, and people were talking about the young woman who had quietly built a successful business from nothing. Chio felt a thrill she had never experienced before, the kind that came from being seen and recognized, Not by people who had doubted her quietly, but by the entire country. As she walked past the red carpet, reporters tried to get a word from her, cameras clicked nonstop, and she realized that her hard work, her late nights, and her determination had all led to this moment. She wasn't just attending a party. She was being celebrated for her talent, her dedication, and her courage to start in silence. In that moment, Chio felt a rush of pride and vindication. Every time she had been told she wasn't ready, every night she spent working alone, every small step she had taken toward her dream, it had all mattered. And now, the world was watching, applauding, and recognizing her for what she had built. She realized this was more than an award gala. It was proof that determination and belief in oneself could overcome any obstacle. Cameras flashed, reporters smiled, and influential people shook her hand, but Chio remained grounded. She knew this was just the beginning. The invitation wasn't just an honor. It was the announcement to the world that Chio had arrived, that she had stepped out of the shadows, and that her story was impossible to ignore. For the first time, she felt completely unstoppable, and a quiet, triumphant smile spread across her face as she prepared to take the stage and show everyone just how ready she truly was. Chio's parents sat frozen in their living room, the television casting bright light on their shocked faces. The news anchor's voice rang out, introducing Chio as the young entrepreneur who had taken the nation by storm. The screen showed her on stage at the gala, confidently accepting an award while leaders, influencers, and celebrities applauded her accomplishments. Cameras followed her every move, capturing her radiant smile, graceful poise, and the admiration pouring from the crowd. Her father's hand trembled as he reached for the remote, but he couldn't turn it off. Her mother's mouth hung slightly open, eyes wide with disbelief. They had always said she wasn't ready. Too young, too inexperienced, not capable enough to join family decisions or even sit at the table. And now here she was, commanding attention on a national stage, her name trending across social media, her story inspiring thousands. Their disbelief quickly turned to panic. Every boast they had made about her siblings now felt empty in comparison. How did she do this? Her father muttered under his breath, voice tight with frustration and confusion. Her mother grabbed the armrest of the sofa, trying to steady herself as she whispered, We never saw this coming." They replayed the clips over and over, watching Chio answer questions with confidence, share her journey with humility, and smile at reporters who praised her determination. Each replay deepened the panic. How could they have ignored her potential for so long? How could they have ignored her potential for so long? How could they have thought she wasn't ready when, clearly, she was capable of achieving greatness on her own? They glanced at each other, realizing that the child they had kept in the shadows had outgrown the boundaries they set for her. Chio had not only succeeded, she had surpassed every expectation, every doubt, and every limit they ever imagined. Her parents felt a mix of regret, fear, and helplessness. Their attempts to guide or control her had been unnecessary because she had found her own path, and she had walked it flawlessly. They understood, maybe too late, that readiness isn't something someone can give you. It's something you create for yourself. Chio, who had once quietly watched from her locked room, now commanded respect, admiration, and success in ways they could not undo or ignore. The panic in their eyes told the truth. They had underestimated her, and now the entire world knew just how powerful and capable she had always been. The next family dinner arrived, and the atmosphere felt different before Chio even stepped into the dining room. Her parents, normally confident and commanding, exchanged uneasy glances as they prepared the table. When Chio appeared in the doorway, dressed simply but elegantly, her presence immediately shifted the energy in the room. Her parents hesitated for a moment. Then her father cleared his throat and said, "Chio, would you like to sit with us tonight?" His voice was careful, almost uncertain. Her mother nodded slightly, avoiding eye contact, as if unsure how to react. Chio paused, letting their words sink in. She didn't rush forward or speak immediately. For the first time, she realized she didn't need to plead or convince anyone. She had built herself, earned respect, and proven her worth through her achievements, not through their approval. Slowly, she walked toward the table, every step measured and confident. She pulled out a chair and sat down, not as the overlooked daughter, but as a woman who commanded attention without demanding it. Her siblings, who usually looked at her with a mix of curiosity and superiority, now glanced at her with a hint of awe, unable to hide their surprise at how much she had changed. The room, once familiar, felt charged with a new awareness. Chio's calm demeanor, her quiet smile, and the air of dignity she carried made it clear that she was no longer a child waiting for permission. She was a woman who had earned her place in the world and at this table. As the conversation began, she listened politely, contributing thoughtfully when appropriate, but always maintaining that quiet strength that radiated respect. Her parents, feeling the weight of their previous dismissal, tried to engage her, but their words faltered, awkward and uncertain. Chio noticed it all but remained composed. She didn't need to remind them of her accomplishments. They were evident in her posture, her confidence, and the way others at the table instinctively leaned in when she spoke. The dynamic had shifted completely. The daughter who had once stood behind a locked door, watching them celebrate without her, now held the room's subtle power. And while the family might have expected humility or apology, Chio offered neither. Only the presence of a woman who had proven her readiness long before anyone finally noticed. In that moment, the family understood without being told. Chio had arrived, and nothing could diminish the respect and admiration she had earned for herself. Sitting there, calm and dignified, she finally felt fully seen. Not because they had invited her, but because she had claimed her own place in the world. Chio took a deep breath and looked around the table, meeting her parents' eyes with calm confidence. The room felt unusually quiet, as if everyone could sense something important was about to be said. She spoke slowly, clearly, each word carrying the weight of her journey. "I stayed home when you told me I wasn't ready." Her voice was steady, and there was no anger in it, only truth. "But in that silence, I built myself. I learned, I worked, I dreamed, and I never stopped believing in what I could become." She paused for a moment, letting the meaning of her words settle over the room. Her parents' faces were pale, their pride mixed with shock and regret. Chio continued, her eyes bright with quiet triumph. "Now, I don't just sit at the table, I own it." The words hung in the air, powerful and undeniable, leaving no room for doubt. Her siblings glanced at her with new respect, realizing that the girl they had overlooked had become stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. The energy in the room shifted completely. It wasn't just a family dinner anymore. It was a recognition of Chio's journey, her resilience, and her achievements. She didn't need their praise or approval. Her success and confidence spoke louder than anything they could say. Outside, friends and colleagues who had heard about her rise were celebrating her online, trending hashtags and messages of admiration reflecting the story of her determination. In that single moment, Chio's presence commanded attention, not through arrogance, but through proof that she had taken rejection and silence and turned it into her greatest strength. Her parents' earlier dismissal, their doubt, and their words that once stung now seemed small compared to the woman standing before them. Chio's final word wasn't meant to hurt. It was a declaration of self-worth, independence, and triumph. She had transformed the quiet nights of hard work into a life that no one could ignore. And as she sat at the table, calm, poised, and fully in control, the message was clear. Her journey had been her own, and the world would never underestimate her again. The family remained stunned, unable to respond immediately, while Chio's eyes sparkled with quiet satisfaction. She had waited, she had worked, and she had conquered, not just the table, but every expectation that had once held her back. In that silence, she had become unstoppable. If you've ever been told you're not ready or underestimated, this is your moment. Watch Chio turn silence into power, and let her story remind you, your time to shine is coming. Share this with someone who needs a boost. Comment below how you're building your own path. And don't forget to hit follow for more stories that inspire, empower, and prove that being patient can lead to unstoppable success.